All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Anthony Horvath, the host of the Gutencast. Thanks for being here tonight. Tonight, we are going to talk about zombies. And I won't be talking alone. I have a guest named Darby Kern. He'll be with us here shortly. Let me just do a quick sound check. Make sure. Yep. Okay. Sorry, kind of a one-man band here, so I have to just double check everything on my own. So before we get Darby in here, I'm going to say a few words about zombies and vampires and aliens. And in about 10 minutes, we'll bring him in, and that'll really liven things up. So as I was thinking about tonight's topic, I was really revisiting thoughts that I've had often, because I haven't talked about the books that I'm the author of, but I have The Warden Watch and The Fisher King's Apprentice, and something like a vampire appears in those books. So it's been an area, I wouldn't say of study, but it's been something that I've paid attention to and thought about it at least a little bit in a more conscientious, studious way. And so I think my question would be, why do people find these topics interesting? Like, why do we like stories about vampires and aliens and zombies? These are things that us ostensibly anyway, there's no evidence that they exist per se. Although that's a little bit of why we have such an interest in aliens lately, is because of the promised release of UFO files. So we might find that there's more there than we realize. But I think it's safe to say that accepting the Haitian voodoos who might believe in actual zombies, as far as I'm concerned, or to my knowledge, no one thinks most of these things exist. Like, according to the the conception in our imaginations as a society. And that would include things like werewolves too, and mermaids. But we keep going back to them. We still continue to enjoy stories about them, even the same story over and over again. And I think that speaks to some reality that is worth reflecting on. So I think the first takeaway that we have to contemplate is that these stories about vampires, aliens, and zombies, they must say something more about humans, about us, than it does about those things. Whether it's because they scare us or because we secretly want to live in a world where these things are real, maybe, that vicarious fear of the other that seeps through our materialistic mindset every day. We want to. We almost need it. Like, as soon as people began writing down fiction, they began having stories like this. Of course, Count Dracula was Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, right? So, like, we had monsters almost from the beginning, and depending on how you view Beowulf and dragons is another loaded thing to talk about. But Beowulf goes all the way back more than 1,000 years, and you've got the main character out there hunting a dragon. So if you think that's fiction, then that just really goes to the point that I'm trying to make. These stories about these unearthly, unhuman things call something up outside of from ourselves and captivate us, and that tells us something. Now, if you are materialist, then I would say that this should be a mystery that you should set about trying to resolve. Because as far as I know, there's no hint anywhere else in the animal kingdom that that they even ponder stories or anything like that, right? Um, my dog seems to show no interest in zombie movies. Um, my particular dog doesn't howl at the moon. I suppose wolves might, but I think that's the extent of any acknowledgement of within nature of nature. So like I guess I don't even know if a wolf is like looking at the moon. That's just in our stories, right? That's again something that's more about us. Um, Maybe the wolf is howling for some other reason, but humans gravitate towards and resonate with um, the otherworldly, and that's the clue. I think that's the clue to the meaning of life. Now I don't know if my guest tonight is gonna uh, say anything about that. Actually, I have very little idea of what he's going to say, which is kind of makes this an interesting experience. Um, so we'll find out together. But there's another thing that I think that these uh, stories do, and the vampires and the aliens and the zombies. Well, let's say the vampires and the zombies for right now. Why? Um, Kind of like thinking. My mouth is going slower than my thoughts. There's something about zombies and vampires in particular, I think, that appeals to us, and it's the purity of evil that they seem to personify. And we have within us a desire, most of us, most healthy, sane people, have a desire to combat pure evil. We want it's the good versus evil kind of motif, and of course we always see ourselves as the good. But the problem is that in our actual reality, in our actual experience of reality, it's very difficult to find actual pure evil. Just about any person that we want to look at and say, well, that person is purely evil and is worthy of the most severest wrath that we can unleash on them, loves their dog or loves their own kids or did a kindness at one point. And that line of thought reminded me of a quote by Solzhenitsyn, and I took the time to get it ready here. So I'll read it. The line separating good and evil passes not through states, nor between classes, nor between political parties either, but right through every human heart and through all human hearts. This line shifts inside us. It oscillates with the years, and even within hearts overwhelmed by evil, one small bridge head of good is retained. So if you don't know who Solzhenitsyn was, he was a dissenter during the era of the Soviet Union. He was put in the gulags, and that's like a Russian prison where he suffered immensely. So it's not like he's not a man who didn't know about evil. He was the victim of great evil and a witness of it as well. And even he recognizes that every single human being, himself included, there's some goodness in there, for lack of a better phrase. I don't want to get too theological about it. But not with vampires or zombies, right? They're kind of the exception. We'll just get this out of here. You don't have to show mercy to a zombie. In fact, you'd be foolish to do so, right? You don't have to show mercy to a vampire. It would be unwise to do so. It's going to come get you, right? So these creatures, especially the more horrific ones, take like the movie Independence Day with the aliens in that one, right? There's no particular reason why anyone needs to shed any moral tears for the thing that it's killing. And that is something that I think resonates with people. It allows us to live vicariously with this sort of righteous hatred for pure evil. And in the stories, we can obtain something like that with zombies or whatnot. In real life, not so much. So those are my opening reflections on this. I said I don't know what Darby's going to say. That's our guest for tonight. But I have some clue. And I think that we might find out, for example, that he thinks that, as I do, that these are not completely fictional things, that there's elements of truth to just about any fantasies that we want to evoke. But sober-minded individuals then need to wrestle with the implications of that. And what if, as Tucker Carlson said, when did he actually say it? 6 months ago or whatever. He firmly believes that aliens, if they really exist, are actually demons. And so now what we're dealing with are actual spiritual entities. And so if that's the case, then the materialist is in big trouble, I would think. But if it's true that demons are interacting with the world in that sense, then even those of us who believe in the spiritual world are going to have some issues to work through as well. It'll be very interesting. So at this time, I'd like to work on bringing in Darby. I'll just say a quick word about him before you get to see him. I've known Darby for quite a while now. He is the author of a book that we publish, and it's called Wounded Blue. I'm going to make it really big here so you can see it. There it is. I wouldn't say a fun book, but it's a quick read. I hope that you'll find it on Amazon. If I remember, I'll put a link on there. We don't do anything with any kind of like fundraising or Patreon or anything with this. So if we promote something or talk about a book or a series or whatnot, I hope that you will support this podcast by supporting the projects of our guests. The other thing that Darby has going, and this is kind of why I thought about him for tonight, is he is a... Oops, let's get rid of that. There we go. An audio drama series, and the topics are related to what we're talking about tonight. And you can almost see that from the cover material that you've got there. Jake Mueller, Blood, Undead, Shroud. You get the idea. So, with no further ado, let's get this out of the way and bring in Darby. I hope you're ready, Darby, because you're about to show up on everyone's screen. There you are.
I'm ready.
There you are. You are ready. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Anthony.
Hey, there's just a little bit of feedback. Am I coming through?
I have everything silenced.
On your phone,
you know what?
Too?
I'm going to get rid of that. How about that?
All right.
All right. We still feeding back?
Nope. You're good.
All right. That was a dumb phone.
They're all dumb, aren't they?
Phones. Yes. Yeah. Even the smart ones are dumb.
That's right. So. Yeah. The operators aren't always so good either, are they?
As you well know from the last couple of days, I am technologically challenged, and my producing partner Micah Touche, who also is a graphic designer who did the Jake Muller stuff here, he will back me up that I am not quite a Luddite, but technologically challenged at times.
So not a Luddite, but a Unabomber. Is it?
No, not that bad. It's not that. I'm not angry like that.
Okay. All right.
Just like, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know where you'd like to start here. Did you hear all the stuff that I said?
I did. I did.
I assume it has nothing to do with what you want to talk about.
I love to talk about that stuff. I don't consider myself like the like the know-all who can speak endlessly about aliens and UFOs. I know quite a bit. I did a lot of research for uh, Unidentified, the first Jake Muller adventure, um, and a lot of my research came from uh, only three or four sources. So,
Right.
and it's funny that you mentioned Tucker Carlson saying that because, and I'd be happy to get into this too. I agree with what he said,
Okay.
uh, and that's the Jake Muller adventures. Which, if I do this right, this
Yeah.
um, is really it's all about spiritual warfare and um, the what the Bible calls the forces of wickedness in high places, and um, that's what it's about. And I don't have any answers that are not found in the Bible. So
Okay.
so our viewers, listeners here can get that right away. That's my foundation.
So that would be one of the four sources.
Uh, yeah, sort of. Um, the I can tell you the big one. I just whoops wait hey oh settle down, kid.
Ah.
The big one that I found was a book by a guy named Gary Bates, and he made a documentary film called Alien Intrusion, which
Ah.
covers the book pretty well. And I got no money for saying that, not even a nickel.
Yeah. Me
But
neither.
but we'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
But it really it interviewed people who have had these abduction situations, experiences, and there's a lot of people out there that it happens to, and they say that there's about 50 UFO sightings every day. And you think, 50 doesn't sound like a lot, but you multiply that times a year, and you multiply that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's quite a few things going on, and people are seeing something, and you can't say that 50 people are nutburgers or whatever.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
they're having these real experiences, and I think it is real.
I think that just the simple fact that the government has seen fit over the last couple years to say they have information to give us
Mhm.
tells us that something's going on.
Yeah, well,
Neither of us
yes,
trust the government a whole lot. I know, but
not a
it's a
ton.
it's a clue though.
Yeah, I think that they may know something. I was a big X Files fan, still kind of am a little bit. I haven't watched it in a while, but this idea that there's all these conspiracies that are taking place, I have a hard time buying it because two people can't keep a secret. Um, you know, I think it was Tom Clancy who said that in Washington D.C. is a secret is something that's known by only one person, and
Hmm.
that's fairly accurate, I think. Um, I just have a hard time believing that this world that can't, the countries can't agree on anything, that there is a group that um, has chatted with the aliens and made a plan with them and are conspiring with them for our own demise.
So your contention was agreement with Tucker that we're talking about demons basically.
Yeah, I think so. I think
So
so.
you're
And
saying the government
even
does or does not have interaction with these demons.
oh, I can believe the government has interactions with demons. That's not so hard to believe. But do they do they know that it's a demon they're speaking with? I'm going to say something that who knows, maybe this will get us both in a lot of trouble. I think George Soros is possessed by a demon.
Yeah. Well,
I
yeah. I don't doubt the existence of demons at all, but I think that
yeah.
the difference with um, what is being contended is where there's no possession. It's just the real thing. It's the entity itself that's being interacted with.
Yeah, in the case of aliens, I would agree with you. There are, you know, all kinds of documented reports, and Gary Bates did a great job of documenting this stuff. That um, alien abduction scenarios happen across um, every national, every age level, every cross section of the population that you can imagine. But the one group that is consistently left out of alien abductions are born again Christians.
Interesting.
It is interesting, and there's a segment of the documentary with a woman who was experiencing one of these abduction scenarios, and she at one point like cried out to Jesus to save her, and it all ended. It just stopped.
Hmm.
And so I there's definitely something to that. And that's, I just did a huge spoiler on unidentified, but that is, a big part of it. And we try to tell it in a bigger action packed story that actually does include a multinational
Oh
organization,
yeah, right.
but not just for that purpose.
Okay.
They're just using it. So,
Sure. All right.
but
So
but
what?
it's
Yeah. What about the other entities? When we were talking, I believe it was you that gave me the list: vampires and zombies. In fact, I think you had a few others on the list too that I didn't include.
um what else did I'm looking at ideas for stories about like the golem,
Yeah. Right.
which you got to finesse that one a little bit to
Yeah.
get a real story about it. Actually, if I look at my billboard back here, um, ghosts are another one.
Sure.
What's interesting about ghosts is in the Bible, and again, it's foundational for me. In the Bible, uh, people see angels, and several times their first thought, or one time when they saw Jesus walking on the water, their first thought was that they were seeing a ghost.
That's right. Yeah.
And so what was their understanding of what a ghost was?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I
this
don't
I
know.
need I need to research this.
Yeah.
But clearly they weren't speaking to a ghost. There's all kinds of spiritualism and spiritualist things that I'd like to touch on. Um, will I live long enough to do all these shows I want to do?
Right. Yeah.
That's not up to me, but
Yeah. Not up to you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Cloning, we talk about. Biblical prophecy is something I'm really interested in. So we touch into some of those things in the story Shroud, which um, uh, I'm happy to say we are actually going into the studio next Monday to start recording that one. So I'm really excited about
Shroud.
that.
The shroud.
Shroud, yeah,
Shroud.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's going to be a lot of fun. What should we think about cloning? What should we think about? You know, uh, people trying to create a new leader for the whole world,
Yeah.
that
Right.
kind of thing.
Right. So
So,
in my little monologue, I brought up the point a few times that if there's any reality to the things that we're talking about at all, they're a real threat to the materialist worldview. And so you're invoking a Christian worldview, and I'm a Christian as well.
mhm.
So that we have in common a framework for being able to say that these things are real, but they're not a harm to our worldview. Probably not. I mean, I can see there are Christians who have a particular concept of aliens where if they were shown to exist as actually extraterrestrials,
Yeah,
not aliens, but actual extraterrestrials, that would be a threat to their worldview. But in my conception of Christianity, even that's no harm. You know, I can make do with
extraterrestrials.
yeah. I can
Okay.
make do with any of that. But if you're a materialist and you find out there's a spiritual entity roaming around possessing people, I think that could be a problem. What do you think?
That could be. That could be. And it's funny because this is part of the conversation that uh, I had with my wife after church this week because uh, we we went through the chapter in the book of Luke. I think it's Luke 10. I could be wrong about that. Where Jesus goes across the sea and meets the man who lives in a cemetery and is possessed by many demons, and they
Right.
call them Legion. Uh, Pretty well known story overall. And first, they are in complete submission to Jesus when they see him,
Yeah.
and they recognize his authority and all that. But they've completely controlled this guy, and they ask. Well, first they beg Jesus not to, send them to hell because it's not their time yet. So
Right.
they know the plan.
Yeah.
They know there's something going to happen to them. And they know that that's not exactly the time because I think they know some things have to happen first. But then they ask permission to leave this guy and go into the herd of swine,
Yeah.
and then the swine jump into the sea and kill themselves. So they're completely bent on destruction, um, and they're in complete submission to Jesus, to his authority and his power as a son of God. And it just kind of was made clear to us that there were a lot of people in Israel and at that time that were demon possessed.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, are there less demons around now than there were then? I don't think so.
Right.
So where are they? We
Yeah.
know that our enemy is here. We know that Jesus has authority over them. We know that you know he's given us authority to respond to them. And there's great stories about Christians who have dealt with possession and things like that and been able to cast out demons and even more control the person who is being controlled in a way.
So,
So
without giving away the story, are you saying that I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here. The
go
new
for it.
one that you're working on here, unidentified, is that the one that has the aliens / demons?
That's aliens and UFOs. That's the
Okay.
first one we did. That's a few years old actually.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
Blood just came out the end of 2024. Undead is in post production right now. It's going to be coming out soon, and that deals with zombies. And Shroud is there. That's the one we're going to record on starting next Monday, along with another one that's kind of going to fit right in between these two. Wait a minute, I'm going the wrong way. These
Yeah.
two, between Undead and Shroud,
Okay.
which is about social engineering and how society and media make us think and
Yeah.
direct us.
It's a little interesting that you go from mythical beasts to social engineering.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of bases.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I've been enjoying about writing and directing this show is that we don't tie ourselves down to one thing. And even as we're talking in Blood, which I think is a great show. I'm really very proud of it. The actors are fantastic, all of them so far. Micah Touche again is the guy who does the sound design and editing on it. He's fantastic. But Blood, you're talking about vampires, and if you and I are sitting over coffee or whatever we want to be drinking at a table, one of the things one of us would eventually say, if we were talking about vampires, is, yeah, but vampires don't really exist.
Yeah. Right.
There's not a real vampire, but there is, and what this deals with is the subculture that
Yeah.
behaves like vampires,
Right.
and that absolutely exists. They have covens in Chicago and New York and plenty of other places. New Orleans is a big one, and Micah lives in Louisiana, and he confirms this is a big thing down there. So
So we as far as like vampires and such go, um, in I don't want to give too much away about my book, The Warden Watch, but
okay,
um, you and I have a shared understanding because of the scriptural basis of our worldview for
hmm,
interpreting some of these things. But there are people who have an unhealthy interest in blood, we'll say.
yes,
And
yes,
I think the reason, well, there's lots of reasons for it, but if we go into the Bible and we look for the scriptures, blood plays a very important role. It's threaded throughout the whole thing.
yeah,
Right to the very beginning, the life of a creature is in its blood, and
hmm,
you're not supposed to eat it for that reason. And so you could
hmm,
almost see somebody who maybe thinks of themselves as being the counter Christian or the counter theist, the one who, like to say, the satanic Bible type people who didn't
yeah,
believe in it but wanted to mock it, whatever. Who would say, you know what, we're not supposed to consume the blood of a creature because life is in it, so we're
yeah,
going to do it anyway, right? And
yeah,
you could almost see there's no reason why that mentality couldn't go back to the beginning of human history, and
absolutely, yeah,
and any number of points in that history you could have had uh, a group of people or a person who develops a reputation for drawing his sustenance from blood.
yeah, yeah. And that's a lot of the popular literature, uh, plays on that. I think it was in Bram Stoker's book Dracula that the line "the blood isn't is it the life is in the blood or the blood is the life."
The
One,
Are you talking about the biblical quote?
no, no.
Bram Stoker's.
I think Bram Stoker used that, and you hear it in a lot of the movies, the Dracula movies, and that's probably because they're taking it from the Bible and perverting it the way they would.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I think vampires are, the interest is there. Somebody pointed this out to me a few years ago, who was kind of on the edge of getting involved with some of the role playing. I'll say that in
Okay.
his case, of a vampire. He said it's just sexy.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, and there's a sexual component to a lot of it that attracts people, and the movies play that up in a big way.
Yeah.
So as our society is conditioned to desire more and more of the sexual component of things, vampires become even more sexy.
Yeah. I wonder why.
It's
I mean, yeah, when you say it, I understand it. Maybe I'm just so innocent and naive, but like until you said it, like I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah, it's definitely there. It's
yeah.
it's, it's definitely a thing.
Well, people will read into anything what they want. It's funny because I am not a Stephen King fan at all. I never really have been. The first book I read, he went off on a tangent on page one, and he wasn't back to it on page 50. And I said, okay, I'll pass. The shortest book that he ever wrote was like 150 pages. That's the only one I've made it through. But in his book on writing, he talks about when Carrie was published, and people would start asking him when it got to the point where they could ask him the philosophical questions, and
Mm,
they're saying, okay, she gets this blood dumped on her, and there's something else maybe about her personal cycle or something like that in the book, and they were asking him about it, and he was just like, there wasn't really a correlation. I just thought dumping pig's blood on her would be a good visual image. And, you know, and there's something to that. I mean, even you look at the cover down there for blood, and the red just pops out at you.
Yeah.
But there's such a creepy element of it. You talked about how Christians will understand what we're talking about with the blood. And, there was a point where I think I was in church or something and listening to one of the songs, and you're singing about blood and all that stuff. And all of a sudden, and this is where the story came from, I just kind of got a little weirded out by it all. And I had to really think about it. I was like, okay, we're doing this in an artistic sense, but somebody who's not a Christian is not going to understand it at all. And they're going to say, dude, that is just weird.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Christ's blood is what redeems us, the shedding of his blood. So,
right. Yeah. That's a very loaded tangent you just took us on.
Brother. Yeah.
Because, but before I go on, I'm almost afraid to, because you and I have known each other for a long time, but it's not like we, go to the coffee shop once a week or something.
Right. We don't get to hang out.
Right. But there is an interesting convergence, sort of like a version of that boomerang theory that's out there. The more extreme left you are, the more extreme right you are. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
The closer you views the line. There's actually a convergence, a boomerang in terms of like the blood stuff. Well, Christians take it very seriously, and maybe it's kind of weird, but there are non-Christians that take it just as seriously. Yeah. Also weirdly, and so what it comes down to in all things is to find what I call the middle way. And the middle way is usually where the truth is, roughly. But the problem with Christianity from this perspective is the middle way is horseshoe. I was just corrected on the chat. It's not boomerang, it's horseshoe. The horseshoe theory of
Oh, the way it comes around. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all right. So anyway, back to like from Christianity's point of view. See, I looked at the chat. Now he threw me off a little bit. But you have in Genesis, blood is in the life of a creature, and then blood plays this huge role in the temple sacrificial system, right? And their idea of going to church, they go to the temple, they'd kill a lamb, and the priest would just coat everything in blood.
Yeah.
That was it, and that was the experience. You'd go in clean, you'd come out covered in blood.
Yeah.
Right? And then fast forward a little bit to Christianity. We don't do that anymore because it's Christ's blood. But not as a metaphor. It's not a metaphor. Somehow his blood covers us now, and the sacrifice is no longer necessary because that blood shields us from the wrath of God.
Yeah.
But
once and for all times.
Once and for all times. But it's that's not a metaphor. But that's like the middle way of blood is to view each and every person as potentially of the life bloodline of Adam and potentially of Jesus. It is weird, I concede.
Yeah.
But apparently true.
Yeah. I'm not an authority, but yeah, that sounds legit.
So none of that seemed to put you off, but if we go into the, I'm Lutheran, communion, right?
Yeah.
Catholics and Lutherans believe it's the actual blood of Jesus. And it's
like transubstantiated?
Well, that would be the Catholics.
The Catholics. Okay,
yeah.
Tell me about the Lutheran version, because I'm not.
Yeah, they call it consubstantiation. So the bread is really there, the wine is really there, but the body and the blood is also really there, and
Okay.
it's manifested real in reality, but through faith,
Okay.
like in faith. So Lutherans aren't going to go around with putting a wafer on a plate and worship it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's sort of a just in the spirit of what we've talked about so far. It's almost like an access into the spiritual realm, which is I can feel Lutherans picking up rocks to hit me right now when I say that. But like, um, so there's, in my view, the spiritual reality is actually more real than the physical reality. That
Okay.
that's my view of the
Um,
whole world.
okay. Yeah.
Okay,
The
so
spiritual is the real one, and
or to put it even better, if we go into Hebrews, where the temple on earth is a copy of the reality in heaven.
okay. Okay.
So if you want to call that the spiritual reality or the heavenly reality, I don't care. But we're the copy, and the thing that we're a copy of is even more real than we are. And after, or as we perceive ourselves, and after everything burns, who we really are will be revealed in Christ in that heavenly temple. So that sacrament, which is the communion thing, is sort
Yeah.
of like a foretaste of that event.
Okay.
A little bit of chaos for you. Yeah, we've never
Okay.
talked about this over coffee,
I
so
I don't think we have. Even on the phone, I don't think we talked
no,
about this.
we didn't.
So
And I should warn you that um, so that in chat people are starting now. Um, that
I think, is it the Lutherans going after you?
well, yeah. So
Okay.
it
Sorry.
was a very colloquial way of presenting it. You're not going to find it described such in the Lutheran doctrine books. We'll say it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all right. So where do you want to go after that?
Well, how do we follow up vampires and communion? Uh,
Right.
let's zombies. Let's go with zombies
Okay.
because that's
Yeah.
next in line here.
Yeah. Sure.
So now I also have to admit, um, and I hope nobody's disappointed who might want to buy the Jake Muller Adventures Undead, that there's no such thing as zombies.
Yeah.
Um, but the story is not designed to be reality in a
Right.
sense.
Right.
Um, but it's funny because as I was writing this, my production friends, one of them, actually two or three people, sent me this link to this article about these people in Philadelphia and other places that were taking these drugs that left them just sort of wandering around like zombies.
I saw that.
So,
Yeah.
so part of me was like, all right, how do I change this story to include that?
Hmm.
And it was kind of late, but Undead is a story that takes place in Louisiana, where there is voodoo. There is all kinds of strange practices going on in those back bayous, and uh, there, if for the sake of the story, we created a type of zombie, not the traditional story. Nobody gets shot in the head or anything like that. Um, some There's some action in it. Some people will not be coming back in the next series, but they're it just is designed to create a question. What should a Christian think about this? And it kind of brings up the question of death. What should a Christian think about death? Is this something we should fear? Is this something we should embrace? Is this something we should celebrate? All that kind of thing. And it's not, they're none of them are designed to be sermons. All this stuff kind of comes out um, organically in the story within conversations and stuff. And Jake is a character who is learning. He's fallen behind a bit in his faith, and now he's catching up, and he's learning things, and hopefully we're learning them with him too. But you know, what what about death? What is, you know, is there a walking death? Is there, you
Hmm.
know, is are the ghosts kind of thing? And but we turn it into a um, kind of a thrilling story that has a little bit of the government conspiracy stuff, and some other elements of things that are going on uh, in our world, including human trafficking,
All right.
that is all part of it. It's all wrapped up in it. And it's funny because the story wasn't designed to do this, but all of a sudden, when I went to work on the next stories, that the story Undead has seeded the next four
Hmm.
in some pretty cool ways. But it's also just, it's really action packed. I am super excited to hear guns and explosions and
You know,
planes.
I should have asked you to give me a sample
Well, we don't have one for Undead, but I should have gotten you one for
of,
Blood for
yeah,
sure.
for anything. We should
Yeah.
have played a little sample. Do you? How hard would it be to get something real quick?
Well, I have the CD here. Well, wait, you know what?
The
Ooh,
the reason
if
why I say that is because, like, you're talking about an audio drama, and
yeah,
I have a feeling that a lot of people don't know actually what those are like. I have a pretty good idea, but I think if they heard a sample, I don't know
yeah.
if we can do it or not.
Let me see what I can do here because I have it on Audible on my phone. So let me wait for it. I have to turn this on.
What? Jake, what are you doing?
This isn't actually the part I was looking for. Hang on a second. I'm going to find more of
Okay.
an actiony scene here. High tech.
Are you comfortable, Ambassador? You and your secretary may be here for a while.
You have no right to treat us this way or to occupy our embassy. This is American soil.
Maybe you haven't looked outside the window lately, but there is a revolution going on, and the Bindi people will not suffer under an oppressive regime any longer.
Why are you keeping us here?
Keep your woman quiet.
What? Sharon, she asked a good question. America has done nothing to the Bindi people that you should be taking us hostage.
It's true that American policy
I think
has
that's
been to
good.
ignore my people, but you have a history of aggression against our brothers
So,
in other countries.
like, I think a lot of people would have thought, like audiobook, but this is like exactly the way you described it to me last night was it's like an actual movie, but without the video.
Yeah. Yeah. You make your own pictures, and they're often very much better than what you would see
Yeah.
in a movie.
Yeah,
There's no limit. It's the theater of the mind.
it must be a ton of work
It is.
to do all that, like beyond. Yeah,
If
yeah,
if you're doing it right, yes.
yeah. I'm almost like having a nightmare over like thinking about all that work, all the sound effects, and just all that. And but how many actors do you have for each one?
Let's see. The first one was, I think, about 12 actors. Last year we did it with about 20 actors. And I think on one of the days when we have the most actors next week, we're going to have 28 people in the studio, including myself and my engineers.
Did you say
So
28?
28, yeah.
Wow.
Not all at once, though. Not all at once.
Okay.
Which is why last year I did the schedule, and we'd go back to the hotel, and you hit myself in the head with a hammer a few times and try and figure it out. This time we hired somebody to do it, and I don't have to hurt myself.
Okay.
But scheduling is a bear for these. And we got a guy named Mark Drury, who is a veteran of Adventures in Odyssey that Focus on the Family did. great guy, has been a huge help to me in this, and I just get to direct it now. But and I'm going to do a little bit of acting in it. But we surround ourselves with the greatest people. Really, I mean, these actors are coming from around the country, and now I say around the world because one of them is coming from New Zealand, and to be in our show, and they're so good. I'm gonna I don't think I'm taking a chance, but I'm gonna say this. I think the people that I'm going to be working with next week, most of whom were in Blood and Undead, are the best actors of audio drama in the United States right now. And if anybody wants to come after me for it, come at me, bro. I can back it up.
Okay.
I really think so. In England, they've been doing this for the last almost 100 years now. So
Yeah.
their actors don't have a stigma to do an audio drama. They'll do audio drama during the day, and then they'll go work on the stage at night. So they're really good. I think they're maybe better trained than some of my actors, but I'm not willing to say that they're better.
Oh, of course not. That would be,
And that's bold.
yeah, and
So,
wise. You don't want to. You wouldn't want to go on record with a statement like.
oh,
Other than that, anyway.
but I'm going to tell you, Tony, I believe it 100%. What I'm saying right now, I believe 100%.
Well,
So,
just listening to that, I don't have to be persuaded. I mean, that's well beyond. Yeah, that's just.
and we didn't
crazy
even get
stuff.
to the gunshots.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's go back to some of our mythical creatures and whatnot.
sure.
So, what kind of research goes into evaluating the like you said, there are no zombies. I'm with you on that, but like, what brought you to that conclusion?
To, to the conclusion that there's no zombies, or that I wanted to do the story.
No, the evidence of related to the thing itself.
Well,
And it's not just the zombies. You can pick any of them.
yeah. Well, you mentioned zombies, so I don't want to sound like I'm shying away from that one because I don't have an answer.
Okay. All right.
I think, obviously, theologically, to begin with, the Bible's clear. We're appointed unto, it's appointed unto man once to die.
Yeah.
So once you're dead, you're dead. You go to the life that you have chosen after you're dead. For a Christian, it's eternity with God. I have some thoughts about the path that goes there, and time, and does time exist, and all that stuff, which gets really confusing when I talk about it. So we won't hurt anybody.
Well, hey,
But
I brought up communion. If that didn't confuse the heck out of people, but yeah, go on, continue on.
but part of it is, you open the window up and look outside, or you drive down a busy street, and you may see some people that look like zombies, but they're not trying to kill anybody and eat their brains.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure where the zombie lore started. I don't know if it was, Night of the Living Dead, or if, I don't really know of a literary version of it. Do you? I mean, you're more read than I am, smarter too. So.
Thinking. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. We know it's not true, but thank you anyway. Nothing is, from a literary point of view, nothing is coming to mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'll return to that though after you're done.
Okay, I just I wanted it to first. I wanted it to tell a story that took place in Louisiana, partly because my good friend Micah is from that area, and he helped me write the story. He co-wrote it with me, gave it authenticity that I could not add. But I wanted to tell a story in that area because there's some, like I said, the bayous are strange, and there's weird things going on, and voodoo and all that stuff really exists in that area. And I wanted to tell a story there because I thought it would be fun. And I cannot think of another story, especially in a Christian medium, that has gone there. So
Yeah.
we went there. We have some authentic Cajun voices and Cajun dialogue. And one of the things about the Jake Muller adventures that speaks to my heart dearly is the food is authentic as well. So and there's running jokes because there's a Cajun girl in Unidentified, the first one, who becomes a big part of the story and part of the larger story too. And her dialogue and talking about different foods and all kinds of things just really gave it some Cajun flavor that Micah made even better. So
Yeah.
I had a germ of an idea for a story, and then I had another germ for another story, and I think Micah said, "Let's put them together. Let's do that and make one big story." And it is a big story. It's the longest show we've done so far. We're thinking it's going to be about 2 hours and 40 minutes. So
It's like a full-length movie at that point.
yeah, almost 2 full-length movies. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you get your money's worth with the Jake Muller adventures for sure.
So it's interesting. So it's clear anyone who's watched this so far will understand that your series is distinctly and deliberately Christian.
Absolutely.
But there's not a whole lot of Christian fiction out there that talks about zombies or vampires. I mean, the subject matter is it's kind of cutting edge from that point of view.
Yeah, we've maybe shot ourselves in the foot a little bit. It's funny. My good friend JD Sutter has a Audio Theater Central podcast, and he did a brief review of Blood, and he talked a bit about it. And there were people who listened to it who listened to his show.
You mean Christians?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They listened to it and decided they wanted nothing to do with the Jake Muller adventures. And I do not fault them. If that is their conviction, I applaud you. But in the end, the lesson that we always have in the end, Jesus wins. The spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places are under authority to Jesus, and they're going to lose. And there's an element of the stories that Jake sometimes makes mistakes and has to learn a lesson for it, but ultimately he's on the winning side. So that's very important, and it is very important for me to tell that. They're not wrapped up perfectly in a bow, and don't always have big hearts and flowers and smiles, but you may learn something if you listen to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still haven't figured out how to market it to Christians who want to listen to audio drama that, okay, Blood is a very dark story, much darker than Unidentified was. So some people are going to not like it as much. Right. The feedback we've gotten from the people who have listened to them is that Blood is the best of the two they've heard so far.
So I'm suddenly interested in what the Adventures in Odyssey guy thinks.
You mean the guy that's helping us out?
Yeah.
Or I think he liked it, but here's what I'll say. Our connection to Adventures in Odyssey. A couple of things actually. One is that I've always wanted this show, the Jake Muller Adventures, to be for kids and adults who listen to Adventures in Odyssey, and for the kids who kind of grew out of it and said, "Oh, that's for kids." I don't listen to that anymore. Because after that, there was nothing for him to listen to.
Yeah,
there was no next step. And so they probably, if they listened to audio drama, listen to stuff that was not at all Christian. We're trying to fill that gap. and I think we have. The other thing is in Unidentified and Blood, one of the characters, Pastor, who is Jake's pastor, a spiritual guide for him, and also talks to him a lot about UFOs because he studied this earlier in his life. Is the actor who plays him is Phil Lawler, who co-created Adventures in Odyssey.
Hmm.
So we have that element in there. In beginning with Blood, and every story following it, there's a character who may or may not be, probably is, okay, he is an angel, and he's played by an actor named John Fornoff, who worked on Adventures in Odyssey as a writer, director, and I think he did some acting there too.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, and there's a couple other actors too, and more coming up. The Odyssey pedigree is influencing the Jake Muller world in a big way. And why not? Because they are doing terrific work. I mean, they just did their 1,000th show, released their number 1,000.
It's still going on even now.
It is. It
I
is.
did not know that.
Phil posted on his Facebook page that he is on his way to Colorado Springs to work on another couple of Odyssey episodes.
Wow.
And I was like, fantastic. God bless you, because they're doing great work. I would be afraid to be a writer for them now, because what do you do after 1,000 shows?
Yeah, right, sure.
I don't have any ideas that they would even think are, not done 10 times. But they're doing terrific work. I know the people who work on it. They love the Lord. They are committed to it. And I listen to what they do. So, yeah.
So it must be kind of challenging to market it, because the Christian audience can be a little finicky on these kinds of things.
They can.
And the secular audience, of course, the distinctly Christian element creates maybe some of the same hesitations. So, who's your audience?
Well, it's mostly going to be Christian, just because of the content.
Okay.
We're going to grab the like I said, the people who listen to Adventures in Odyssey, hopefully. Our thought originally was that because some of the other shows I've worked on tend to like direct their product towards like homeschooled families, because homeschool families listen to a lot of audio drama.
Yeah, right, sure.
And I like those people a lot, but I don't think they embraced it the way we hoped they would. Completely understandable, vampires and aliens, not always a big thing.
Sure.
And in fact, I talked to a producer of Christian audio dramas, a fairly well-known brand, and there was a point where they considered licensing or purchasing Jake Muller, and I didn't hear from him for a while, and I didn't hear from him for a little while more. And when we finally got together, his comment was, I just don't know how we're going to market vampires and zombies to our audience.
Yeah, sure.
And my response was, well, you're not. You're going to expand your audience. You're going to get some new people.
Right, yeah.
And apparently that was the B answer. So that conversation ended pretty quick, or at least has not continued, which, that is okay. They're doing their thing, and I get to do mine, and I don't have to water it down for a 7-year-old audience, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So we're connected through my publishing, Thanatos Publishing Group, and APG has always been a little bit more daring in terms of the works that we're willing to publish.
Sure.
And in this context, the same people who would be worried about the Jake Mueller series probably would not be so interested in the book we published of you either, Wounded Blue, which maybe we won't tell
Possibly
them.
not.
Maybe we don't want to tell them what that one's about.
Oh, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not going to back away from it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
it's
just we published it. You know,
you
and
did. Yeah.
it's the problem I think with Christians is there is obviously a certain kind of there is a threshold of innocence that we want to maintain and retain.
Hmm.
Like that exists. It's real. No question. But the world that we live in, we should not be naive about what is in it, and we do not want to be ill-equipped to interact with what's in it either. So we don't. We should be prepared. Like if someone comes up and says to you, if you're like one of these homeschool people or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, I love them all. I mean, I'm not trying to. You know the kind of people I'm talking
Great
about.
people. Great
Um,
people.
If you come up and ask them, so what do you think about vampires, for example? They got to have an answer,
Mhm.
and if it's not a reasonable answer, that's gonna cast doubts on the robustness of the Christian worldview to deal with those kinds of things. So
Yeah.
maybe that doesn't make you a consumer of the Jake Mueller series or our books that we publish, but it does mean that somewhere along the lines, you've got to interact with this stuff so that you're able to give an answer when you're asked.
Yeah. I think a big part of what I am doing is I don't want to consider myself an agent provocateur, but I want a conversation. And originally, it was a conversation about aliens and UFOs. And what I realized as I was doing this was that the conversation is happening, but it's not happening from a pulpit, and it's not happening in weekly Bible studies or anything like that, which is okay. But you know, if I had gone to my dad before he passed and said, "Hey, Dad, what do you think of UFOs and aliens?" He would have said, "Not much." And that was his thing. He didn't even want to go to the movies with me most of the time. But there's so many people like me who, Star Wars came out when I was 10 years old, and it was just such a cultural phenomenon that, and then Close Encounters comes out a year later and expands the conversation. So all of a sudden, everybody is interested in things that fly in space.
Yeah.
Sure, Star Trek started it, but Star Trek as a phenomenon,
Yeah.
they may have started, but it was even before that. But my dad saying not much really meant that he and I were never going to have a meaningful conversation about what 50 people are seeing a day,
Yeah. Right.
and how it, how it comes, why it matters to us.
Yeah.
And if I, as a Christian, want to talk to somebody who has had one of these experiences, how can I do that? I don't have the shared experience, and I don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
But we can educate ourselves, and I think just having that conversation between intelligent people can do some of that. The vampire thing, in a way, is more real than UFOs, because there are these subcultures of people behaving a certain way,
Yeah.
believing a certain thing, having a certain regard for human life, and
Low regard.
a low regard. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They would say it's a very high regard, but when you look at it from outside,
Right.
it's a very low regard. But how do you have a conversation with those people if you don't want to know they exist or acknowledge they exist?
Right.
You know.
So this is the point in the show that I would encourage the audience, if they want to submit questions or comments, to do so, and we will try to take time to do that. I will have to relay them to you because I don't think that you are viewing it anymore, which is fine.
No,
Quite all
there's
right.
feedback.
Yeah, right. Um, also, I should mention if you are watching this later, because viewers will continue to watch it even if we don't have, live viewers right now. We'll continue to get traffic. Um, if you like this, if you enjoy it and want more of it, what you got to do, you got to like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm almost embarrassed to have to say it, but in the end, uh, you help make this. And again, like I said at the beginning, if we feature an author or a project, um, very much invite you and ask you to, like, if you like this, go get it. And if you like it, after you've gotten it, tell people about it,
Yeah.
because the way things are for you and me and people walking the edge, we'll say, between audiences. We just can't tap right into the default audience. We need people to advocate for us, and so this is the part of the podcast where I encourage people to be that advocate. So I wanted to give a couple thoughts here.
Yeah.
One of the I think the problems when we're talking about wrestling with the metaphysical ramifications of these entities is that it isn't necessarily that they don't exist per se. It's that the common perception that we have or conception, they come from a movie or a book or pop culture.
Yeah.
So if you say, well, do vampires exist? Well, people are thinking of like the Anne Rice vampires, right?
Right.
What was the her series? Interview
Uh,
interview with it.
Lestat,
Yeah.
Interview with the Vampire. Yeah.
Like why would anyone think that that's real? That doesn't make sense.
She paints a very vivid picture, though.
It's a very well written story,
Mhm.
But if we want to get into the question of, okay, so to what degree is there any reality behind these myths? We have to ask a different set of questions. And so, like, for example, the example that I would use for this would be like dragons. Um,
Okay.
if you look in contemporary art, you got how to train your dragon.
Hmm.
Like if you say, well, do dragons exist? And they think it's the cartoon from How to Train a Dragon. Well, we're not really on the same page. No one really thinks
No.
that exists. Not like in a
Right.
tangible form. But there is evidence in history of something like dragons, and we might call them dinosaurs,
Hmm.
possibly. I mentioned
Definitely.
Beowulf at the very beginning. This goes way back. This isn't the invention from Hollywood, and so when you begin interacting with it, and from that point of view, there's like a whole new set of questions, and we're back to what I brought up at the beginning with, okay, if you're a materialist, how do you deal with that? Because with like dragons, for example, there's not supposed to be dinosaurs in the modern era. It's not
Right.
supposed to happen. And for you and me, if like they go into a rainforest and they find a dinosaur, I'd be like, kind of
Makes sense.
saw that coming actually.
Yeah. Sure.
But for them, that's earth shattering. But now transfer that to like the question of like aliens or all these other things. If we sift through the Hollywood and we get to the stories that have punctuated throughout time, and you and I kind of agreed we can't think of anything for zombies.
Yeah.
But there might be for something like vampires. So we should be ready to interact with that and have a intelligent response to that if we want to have a conversation about these in our society today.
Yeah. And to be able to speak a common language with people.
Yeah, right.
I don't, there's the people who, I just use like Harry Potter for an example.
Sure.
When Harry Potter came out, my sister-in-law brilliantly, I think, when my niece wanted to read it, said, "All right, let's read it together, and we'll talk about it."
Yeah.
And they did that. And then there's an opposite extreme of people who are like, Harry Potter, no, it's of the devil, don't
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Right.
It was for me, it was Kiss when I was growing up, but that whole sort of thing. But
wait, Kiss the music group?
the band, oh yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, just making sure. All right,
Yeah,
go on,
yeah.
go on.
So parents would forbid their children. Some parents would forbid their children from reading Harry Potter. But so neither the parent nor the child were conversant on why it might not be the right thing for them to read.
Yeah.
If that was determined to be the case, find some common language. If your faith is strong enough, nothing that J.K. Rowling says is gonna mess you up.
Yeah.
But there's, it's funny because you talk about dragons and dinosaurs and the oldest book of the Bible is the book of Job.
Mm-hmm.
And while God is really smacking Job upside the head at the end, and saying, "Where were you when I did this? I created this world. And what were you doing? You're nothing." Okay. But then he talks about Behemoth and Leviathan. And that always catches my ear, like, what were those?
Right.
Are they still around?
Yeah.
Are they hiding someplace? Is there something at the bottom of the ocean that might be Leviathan? And I mean, some people will say, "Oh, he's talking about elephants," or what's the other one now?
That's the NIV footnote. They're talking about an alligator. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, read a little closer. He is not describing an alligator or anything like that. There is nothing that God could not create, put on his planet, and there's nothing that he couldn't take away if he wanted to, whether it be in the flood of Noah or whatever. Something could just die out. It just happens.
Yeah.
But man, could you imagine being able to go back 6,000 years in time and just kind of get a look at the things that are, and when God talks about it, he talks about it in a way that's like, what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
When I say Behemoth and Leviathan,
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just to put a finer point on that, because you mentioned that Job is the oldest book in the Bible, and so people might not realize that. So, of course, Genesis is first, but it's not the oldest. So, textual critics have been able to ascertain that the language used in the book of Job is the more or less the oldest form of Hebrew that we know of, and that's how they date that, and it's pretty likely, at least from that analysis, that it's. I'm not telling you. I'm telling the viewers. So I don't know. Maybe it's new.
I'm learning too.
It's pre-flood. It's a pre-flood book, most likely. So
Noah had it in his library.
What's that?
Noah probably had it in his library on the ark.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe,
totally plausible. Yeah. So when you look at the story of Job, then objectively, you're looking at something that's even older than Beowulf, and it also that almost one of the earliest works known to man, the Book of Job, also talks about these creatures. So it's really potentially worldview breaking, depending on your worldview, to really begin sifting the evidence for these, whatever they are, these creatures. I mean, all the things that we've talked about. Like, if we're going to evaluate, okay, are vampires real? Yes or no? Zombies, dragons, and if you really begin to sort through the evidence for these things, there's really some interesting surprises in there in terms of what has better evidentiary basis than you might realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
I mean,
we're like-minded on that. I know that.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I just, am I have on my board behind me out of view here, I have the list of things that, Jake Muller might encounter at some point. Dinosaurs is on that list.
Yeah, sure.
And how do I mean, it takes a lot of time to figure out a story that would be even remotely credible,
Yeah.
to figure out how Jake is going to interact with dinosaurs. Um, I don't know. I'm a big Michael Crichton fan, so who knows
Yeah.
what'll come up there.
Yeah.
But
What's interesting, um, there was a person that I knew on Facebook who was a fantastic artist, and he was a young Earth creationist, and his view of dragons was much like the way Tucker Carlson views aliens. They are unequivocally satanic creatures.
oh,
And so I just casually, and he made a comment about something or another along that lines, and I just casually asked, I said, well, do you think dinosaurs are real, don't you? Don't you think those could be the dragons? And he went off on me and unfriended me within 5
oh
seconds.
wow,
I could not believe it.
wow.
I was like, wow. Like, how can you like be that close and yet
Yeah.
that far? Like,
I'm-
not. I don't even think it had even occurred to them that they might be dinosaurs.
Mm,
Like, it was
Interesting.
they were either demonic or nothing. It was the weirdest thing.
and that's kind of a strange take on them. I've never actually heard that before outside the the fantasy book element of it.
Well,
Yeah,
Satan's referred to in the scriptures as the dragon,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
the serpent. Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's
But
not.
I mean, just think of the language though that was used, and the translation is
Yeah.
dragon the best translation of that Hebrew word. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not a linguist.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that question out there. Don't unfriend me.
I know. It was
I don't
crazy.
know, but
So
I don't know. If you go to the Creation Museum, which I really enjoy, I've been there a couple of times. There's a whole section of, I think I have a photograph of it someplace, but they have these kind of stand-up displays kind of along the hallway that you enter, and they're about dragons.
yeah,
And that is their contention, is that the dinosaurs, which just means big lizard,
sure.
or thunder lizard,
Let's
are
get it right.
possibly the dragons of old. In fact, I've heard some creation scientists say that until the 1800s or the 18th century, maybe, they were always called dragons.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs were always,
Well, obviously they were called something because the word
Yeah.
dinosaur wasn't even coined until the 1800s. So
right. Yep. So
So we have just a few minutes left. When earlier in the conversation, I thought I saw you kind of like catch your breath when I suggested that extraterrestrial actual entities might exist. Like, just as a did I read that?
that there are other planets with
Well,
other beings.
At least I posed the possibility. At least.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it, I guess. Just for theological reasons.
Okay.
There's a lot about Jesus's redemptive act. I don't have the scripture off the top of my head, but first we needed a kinsman redeemer.
Yeah.
So he came to redeem humanity, Adam's race, Adam's fallen race. I think that It's kind of, and I don't mean to be provocative or anything about saying this, but I think it's kind of an evolutionary idea, and I'm not a proponent of evolution myself. So I have a harder time with it. Now, at the same time, uh, could God have done that? Absolutely. Why? God can do whatever He wants. Um, the question is always why? Why would He do that? Does Jesus need to go and redeem them as well at some point? And if He does that, where does the once and for all time, the sacrifice once and for all time, fit into that? There are theologians and science fiction enthusiasts who might find that very simplistic, and it's because I can't come up with a better argument off the top of my head right now. But the bottom line is, God can do what He wants.
Yeah. Well,
so
the one being provocative was me, obviously, because I was the one that zeroed in on it, and yeah,
you're so
yeah.
Man, why do I talk to you?
I know. Well, I'll give you my take. Here,
Go ahead.
So again, theologically, what we know is that all of creation was made subject to man. So in my mind, yeah, if there's something extraterrestrial out there, it doesn't necessarily have to be sentient, right? Like that's the movie scene. That goes back to this idea of the conceptions we have that come from our stories. You know, if the reality, if it ever surfaces, I expect to be consistent with the Bible, and whatever it is, it's going to be subject to demand, like everything else. So that to me doesn't really strike me, and I in my mind, actually, to touch on what you said, well, like God could do this. Like God is like ultimately, like we tell our stories, but we're made in His image. He tells the best stories, right? So the idea that we could come up with any kind of a plot device that isn't even better in His creation, I just have trouble. I can't. I won't limit Him in that way. I think that we have certain parameters. We know, for example, that it's going to be subject to man because of that Bible passage. We know that. But beyond that, He could be ready to throw a curveball out there. And personally, I'll tell you, because I'm being provocative, because why not?
It's your show, man.
I know. And I've only told a few people this, and given how many viewers I expect to maybe see this, probably only a few people will ever know it. The Hanakra, C.S. Lewis. Have you?
Yeah. I haven't read it, but
the Hanakra is a creature that lives on the silent planet Mars. And
Silent Planet I have read. The other two
okay.
bogged down in.
It's just a creature, right? It's just a creature. I almost expect, because I expect there to be a Hanakra out there, because in order for there to be bravery, there must be danger. And in an unfallen world, and God did not intend for the world to be fallen, bravery is still a virtue. He would have anticipated the need for an unfallen humanity to show courage. So I would not be surprised if there was an equivalent of the Hanakra out there ready to be encountered by the human race.
Okay.
That's you are only the second person who ever heard me express that out loud.
Wow.
And
I'm not
OJ
smart enough to
Wilson.
argue with you now.
Yeah, what do you think of that? Is that too crazy?
It doesn't sound too crazy when you say it.
Good answer.
It's funny because I know we're wrapping up here, but I have sort of a real world equivalent to what you're saying about God is going to do something that's far more interesting than what we come up with.
Yeah.
His stories are better than ours. My first audio drama that I professionally worked for was the Left Behind series, and in the 1990s,
Really?
based on a series of books, which is not everybody's eschatology, not their idea of what the
Yeah.
end times are going to be like. I understand that. My ideas about end time prophecy line up with what they believe fairly well. But the problem you always get into when you try to write a narrative about it is whatever you do, first, it's not what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
It's secondly, whatever God does is going to be greater and more unexpected.
Yeah.
Because he's God, and there's always the equivalent of okay, cute books. Here, hold my beer. I'm going to show you how it really goes.
Exactly right.
And it's God doesn't. He's there's a saying, it ain't bragging if you can do it, and
That's
he can
right.
do it.
Yep.
So
Very good. Yeah. Yep. I agree. So we're gonna have you come back on. When do you think? Like, what is a milestone in the development of the Jake Mueller series, or whatever's going on in your creative life that would be a good time to bring you back? What do you think?
I would love to be back sometime this summer.
Okay.
Undead will be out, and I may have some ideas or something to tell you about possibly some other stories, audio dramas that I'm working on. And let me just tease it by saying it was no accident that I thought of Leviathan and Behemoth.
Okay.
So
All right. All right.
tease.
Well, yeah, good tease. All right. So I need you to send me links to put in the description of this.
For sure.
And make sure that we get that to happen. So I'm gonna bid you farewell. I'll say just a few words in closing. Darby, thanks a great deal. Hopefully we said enough interesting things that more than just you and I were interesting.
I hope so. I hope so.
I think so. I love this stuff. So
we didn't even get to talk about Wounded Blue. So
yeah, right.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You have a great night. Thanks for being on.
You too.
I'm gonna mute you and say my own things.
All right. Thanks, brother. It's good talking to you.
Yep. All right. So I'm not going to repeat my monologue. That would be ridiculous. But I'm going to scare people with my big head for a minute here. Oh boy. We'll just get rid of that. So I hope that if you were just sort of skipping through this podcast, I hope that you will go and listen to the sample that Darby played of the series. I really think that kind of stuff is amazing, and I think that people would really enjoy it, especially if they have a different kind of lifestyle than I do. I'm not in a car for very much, but if you've got long commutes, just turn off the news or whatever that stupid thing that PBS is playing, or NPR, and pop in the Jake Mueller series. It's the highest possible quality that you can get, and I know that in part because of some conversations that I had with them before as well. Now, as far as wrapping up this podcast goes, I'll just repeat again, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all that silly stuff. And we are taking topic ideas and also suggestions on guests. So far, we've had a lot of guests that are people that I already know, which is quite fine. But if you're a complete stranger, and even if you're not a Christian, today was pretty heavy on the Christian stuff. I'll take anyone. I want to have conversations with people. I'd like to find ways to use the internet, which is a curse in so many ways, for good and build new relationships and strengthen existing ones. So, boy, I had something else I was going to say about that before I signed it off. Dang it all! Anyway, send those guests to me. Put us in touch. I'd love to have that. I know what it was. On Thursday, the current plan is to have a conversation about the T4, the Nazi T4 project. If you are not familiar with that, that was the German, not a plan. They actually did this to murder disabled people. This would be in 37, 38. This is before they began killing the Jews. First, they started killing the disabled people, and that's going to be the topic for Thursday. So definitely a different turn in the conversation. You guys might learn something. People might learn something. It's something that I actually have studied, and I'll bring some of that out on Thursday. Hope you'll be there then. Hope you have a great night. I'm not going to continue to babble. Peace out, home slices. I've been wanting to say that for a while. And we're done. So I'm just going to, here's what I have to do. I've learned I don't want to stop too soon because then it cuts off the stream from the people who are watching it. So let's see here. Stop recording. And end the stream.